And I
Mhm.
tell people, AI is not going to make you an expert in something you're not already an expert in and that you understand. It can help do a lot and it'll impress you, but the more expertise you have in a subject, the more flaws you see that it
Right.
has, right? And in our industry, we've got a lot of craftsmen, right? People that and they care about the craft and the quality. So William Gibson's summary, basically he said, we've got to teach the audience what quality filmmaking and storytelling is. You got to teach the audience what great music is really composed of, right? Because we're going to see more and more slop come out. But there are a lot of things that AI can do right now that can really help, but it should make you more human, frankly, not less human. It should make you
Mhm.
better and enhance the human.
Hello, hello, hello. It's Jeremy Gryder, the e-commerce redneck. And today I've got quite the guest. I have Harry Karidis, who is an executive producer and director. He's done a lot of great commercials and other stuff and all sorts of creative stuff. So without any further ado, Harry, tell us about yourself and what you got going on.
Well, first, Jeremy, thank you so much for having me. I just always enjoy listening to your podcast, your thoughts. Love what you do for people. But yeah, I appreciate you having me here. I've been, as you know, I'm a director in the Directors Guild of America, and I had my own production company now for, gosh, 30 years. And I tell people I'm a storyteller with an agenda. And by that, I mean, if you have an agenda that's important and pure, well, then there's a lot we can do with marketing and telling your story, right? As you know very well, how important brands are, right? And I constantly tell my clients it's not the best product or service or even unfortunately candidate that wins. It's who tells the best story to the right audience at the right time, right? And so, yeah, so that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years and living at this intersection of creativity, storytelling, technology, which is really leading the day. We have all these conversations we're having about how fast AI is advancing and how that's affecting all of our lives and businesses, right? And then the markets, the marketplace, and those shifts that are happening. So that's how I spend my days.
Well, I've got to ask you, I am the e-commerce redneck, and I've got to ask, have you ever done anything in e-commerce?
I know you are, and a master at it, right? And no, I myself have not. My clients are typically advertising agencies, right? Or direct to clients that want to make marketing videos, or again, what I used to call TV commercials. I'm not a fan of commercials, especially when they're
Right.
interruptive and don't do it. However, my wife is looking to do this. She was a makeup artist in the film industry for many years, and now has her own salon space and has a lot of products, and her clients to love her. No more 5 a.m. call times, like in the business
Nice.
we have her, knowing when you're going to get home at night because the days go long. But we're going to be calling you because we're going to be looking into that. She's got products that
Absolutely.
that her clients love.
Well, I've got to know because there's a lot of them behind you. What are all these awards you have behind you? What are those?
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, I've been at it a long time. Those
Yeah.
are all advertising awards. We have Tellies and Addies and Effies, so for different things.
My wife calls me an effer. I don't think it's the same thing.
The Effie is for effectiveness, right? Because
Okay. Effective.
sometimes we'll
Like
have
that.
an art director that wants to make a great, and win some awards for visual style. But if it, and you'll know this as well as anybody, right? If it doesn't move the needle, what was the point, right? If
Yeah.
if
Right.
you're spending resources and time and effort, but it's going to get you a million likes, but not sell a single product, maybe your strategy was off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm also something I'm really interested in finding out from you is, as somebody that's been in this profession for so long, and as, the awards tell us the story that you've done quite well, you know, how has AI in the modern technology, in the approach, in the storyboarding, all of that stuff, how does that all play into it? Are there some advantages that can even help, more analog type recordings, obviously, to really shine?
Well, great question. A great question. And I'll tell you a quick anecdotal story, okay? And as I answer your question, so being in the Directors Guild many years ago, about 24 years ago, started doing a digital day every year because we used to shoot on film, as you know, acetate, and digital cameras were starting to really gain some traction. And we had these brilliant cinematographers, right, they understood light and shadow and storytelling with that. And these directors, back then they were going to start colorizing black and white films. And the directors were all up in arms. You can't do that. They weren't meant to be viewed that way. They weren't shot that way. Don't do that, right? So we had a guest speaker. His name was William Gibson. Yeah, William Gibson wrote some great science fiction books back in the day. Johnny Mnemonic. I forget the other ones. He's like credited with one of the early people talking about cyberspace, right, in these virtual worlds. He gave a great talk where he said, this is the first time in history the younger kids know a little bit more about the technology than the older folks do. And little Johnny's going to watch your movie that won the Academy Award, and he's going to get bored. And he's going to swap Meryl Streep's head off with this, dog playing poker. And then he's going to do this. Then he's going to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so for 24 years, we've been watching this technology seep into the industry, right? It started with post-production, with the effects like the weatherman in front of the blue screen then. And
Yeah.
it was blue because that was usually the farthest away from flesh tones. So you would key it, and then we went green screen. And then it got into previs, where you literally can make the movie in the computer before you go out and shoot it. They say Peter Jackson's previs, he could release those. They look like a Pixar film before he goes out and shoots the real one, right?
Yeah.
Nice to have those budgets. But so over the years, as the technology keeps improving, we need the storytellers. We need great storytellers to understand how to use these tools, right, to make them better at telling their stories and their jobs. But there's always pushback, right? And there's a lot of fear right now in the industry, because AI can do some amazing things, right? Now it can help in the writing. It can help you in brainstorming. It can write, entire screenplays if you wanted to let it. But one of the things we say is you got to keep the human in the loop. And I tell people AI is not going to make you an expert in something you're not already an expert in and that you understand. It can help do a lot and it'll impress you, but the more expertise you have in a subject, the more flaws you see that it has, right? And in our industry, we've got a lot of craftsmen, right? People that and they care about the craft and the quality. So William Gibson's summary, basically he said, we've got to teach the audience what quality filmmaking and storytelling is. You got to teach the audience what great music is really composed of, right? Because we're going to see more and more slop come out. But there are a lot of things that AI can do right now that can really help, but it should make you more human, frankly, not less human. It should make you better and enhance the human. So and my friend Eric Burgess, who runs a company called Cred Tent, is trying to navigate and create the company that will basically protect the intellectual property of the artist, right? And both sides want it. The large models want this too because they don't want to get sued, and how these models are being trained. But it is going to touch, I think, everything, Jeremy. I heard a great statement once. Somebody said, every job in filmmaking is a career. Now, and if you've ever done that process, by the time we get to the end, they have what they call Foley artists, and the Foley artists still exist. They're the people that put the sound designs effects. So if you're ever in a Foley room, there's different floors. Here's a gravel floor. Here's a hard floor. Here are what the door slam should sound like, and they're creating these sound effects, right? Now, you can go to a sound effects library and get almost anything you want and get it pretty close. But every single job in making a film, it could be a career, whether you're the art director, the production designer, the cinematographer, the lighting director, So these tools are enhancing that. So we're going to see a lot of people as the gatekeepers tend to fall away. There'll be more talented people that will come in and understand how to use the technology. And then, I'm running a think tank now because this AI is going to affect everything. can
Yeah, it
affect the
already is.
right? The operation of the organization, everything. And I love to see how you stay on top of it because of the e-commerce, right? And with the
Well,
algorithms.
it's crazy. 5 years ago, I don't think I would ever foreseen it being like this, but I mean, honestly, for the most part, you don't need much dev help anymore. Like, it's just so easy. Like, for instance, on Shopify, you can hook up Lovable and build your own front end theme, custom. You don't need a developer. So it's incredible. And then, we have all these really sharp or not non e-commerce like website builders that are just getting better and better and better. And it's like, you can either wait months for something or have somebody build it in days or even weeks compared to what the projects used to take, going on, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Instead, you're done in less than a month many times in those types of projects. And it's all because if you use AI and you utilize it correctly, you can get a lot of stuff done. I took this has always been one of the biggest issues in e-commerce, Harry, and it's migrating one store to another. And the other day, I literally took a big commerce store that I was moving away from, and I took all the products, put it in an export CSV, put it in Chat GPT, told it to turn it into a Shopify export or a product catalog, and it did with options and everything, pictures, everything worked. It was beautiful, even brought over the HTML and converted it.
It
So,
is just it's amazing if you know how to use it and, if you've got your objective and so it's fantastic, and I think we're hearing more and more and teaching more and more, and just do it. Jeremy, we're saying, there's no reason to not. If you've got an idea or a product or a service and think like an entrepreneur, and it'll help, this AI will help you with that, so
well, money's always been an issue for people starting out in e-commerce. Sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't. And if they don't, the barrier's always been, very high. And now if you have product and you've got a reasonable budget, you can do so much more than you could do just a year ago, So
yeah,
I'm sure
that's
it's
and
the
that's
same
that's
creative
all.
in your world.
That's what I was gonna say. The same is true, in our industry. Barriers to entry are falling, right? Which is fantastic for people that otherwise wouldn't have had an opportunity, right? And, so it's exciting to see. Many are concerned about job loss and some of the disruption that's gonna happen. But, after every one of these major tectonic shifts that have happened with technology, there's
Hmm.
usually a golden age eventually when we come out the other side and society adjusts. For example, some people say, it's really impacted the movie industry, but in reality, there's like 5 million new YouTube filmmakers, if you will, right? Now, a lot more slop, no doubt about it.
Oh
But
God.
yeah, right. And you as a musician, you know that too.
Yeah.
But
Oh, that irks me more than anything. I told somebody today, I said AI is Guitar Hero for non-musicians.
that's great. I'm
And
going to
if
use
you
that.
know how much guitar players hate Guitar Hero, you'll understand.
Right. But I gotta tell you that yeah, I've seen this in the game in my industry too, but we've discovered a few people, it has actually introduced the guitar, and I get it. I wish I could play the guitar like you do, but that is not playing the guitar, right? That's, they get the first person shooter thing down and the action reaction with it is not, but I have a lot of respect for the musicians that are really great at their craft.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny, and I'm sure you hear this too. Like with music, I always hear immediately I can tell it's AI. Like it always has the sound of something wrong. Not that it'll always be like that, but I feel like film's that way too. So you see video, it may take a few seconds, but it's usually pretty easy to spot. What are your thoughts and what have you seen in regards to?
Well, that's a true statement, and like I said, the more expertise you are, the more you can spot it, right? But I've been in some sessions with some groups where we learned at the end of watching a video, that was not the real person. This person hasn't been with us for a long time. It was somebody else doing it. But in the end, we went, But so what? Does that matter? The information was great. They presented it in a great way using, and again, what they're trying to do at Cred 10, I highly recommend you bring him on. I think he'd be relevant and you'd love hearing from
Mhm.
Eric. As long as you're not plagiarizing and stealing somebody's work, right? But the difference is, you're influenced, I'm influenced by the music we've heard in the past, by the stories we've heard, the movies we watch. But I could read 5 books and then maybe, I talked to some legal folks and I said, we used to say, if you borrow from one person, it's plagiarism. If you borrow from many, it's research, right? So it could be research, but
Speaking of
AI,
research, these
Mhm.
kids nowadays in college don't even know what going to the library is compared to what we had to do.
We got a great slide deck to show that. What was a card catalog? What? You had to
What is
pull
a
that out?
card catalog? Do we
Then you had
get
to go look at, right, you're right. And there's a great book called Everything is Miscellaneous, and I think he was like a Harvard librarian, and the Dewey Decimal System was great in its day. I think there are 10 categories and 10 subcategories, right? But they couldn't decide which was the most important. And so the internet was supposed to change all that, right? So
right,
now all the information in the world is supposed to be available to everybody anywhere. Right now, AI is amplifying that even more. But we turned it into a system to what's the most popular information, what's the most common. That doesn't mean it's the best, right?
right,
And so
right.
this is the issue with AI. And really, another great book I recommend constantly. Now, it's a little dated. It's called The Whole New Mind by Daniel Pink. And Daniel Pink talked about what happened in the Industrial Revolution for labor saving devices.
Mhm.
Computers come along and they've been the cognitive saving devices, how we can store things. But what's happening now, and I'd like to catch up and see what he thinks about AI, because this is pre-AI, a whole new mind. Why creative, more, right brain dominated people. We really use our whole brain. That's a myth that you use your right or left side, right? And you use more than 10% too, but maybe not as much as we could. But
Right,
he talks about how the creatives are going to run the future because this is something AI still can't do. It doesn't have wisdom, it doesn't have experience. And so he said the poets and the musicians and the storytellers are important, more important, people that understand empathy. And we're all still looking to live a purposeful life. And that's one of my biggest concerns with young people to have purpose and to seek out problems that need to be solved and solving these problems and then moving on to another interesting problem to give you purpose. And AI can help with that. It's doing some amazing things in medicine. You know, uh, Figured out protein folding that would have taken.
yeah. We had Harvey Castro on a couple
Right.
episodes back, and yeah, it's phenomenal what he was saying about how they're able to detect people in a waiting room, like what their condition is. Like amazing, amazing.
Harvey's brilliant. He's so ahead. He's on the edge, right? And he's working with the astronauts that are going into space.
Well, yeah, he's with Phantom. What is it? Phantom Space, I believe.
Yeah.
These are the guys that helped start SpaceX.
Right. Right. Yeah. So the world is changing and it's changing fast. That's the other thing. We've never seen anything happen uh, at this scope and this speed before. We really
No,
haven't. This is we all, it's kind of a cliche. We've seen this before. The cliche this time's different, but this really is moving at a pace that society's going to have to figure out how to adapt quickly to the change that's
getting
coming.
real George Jetson real quick.
100%, 100%.
We're gonna
So the
be
guys,
zipping
but this
around
is a
in our
great.
little flying
It
cart
is.
soon.
Flying car, yeah, where's my flying cart was the thing for years, and actually they're out there, as you probably know. It's just getting that system into place is the challenge, right? Same autonomous cars. Where's my self-driving car? Well, we see it happening now, but getting society to be able to deal with it because the organization really culture, we're looking to the government for policy. It can't really keep up right now with how fast these things could move, right?
Right.
And so I encourage these young people to be adaptable, creative problem seekers, and I put
Absolutely.
ethical in there as as well. So
That's a huge thing that I don't think gets translated a lot of times in the internet is like ethical behavior. Like, okay, can you do it? Yes. Is it beneficial? Probably not. Like is it unethical? Probably not, Like discernment something, wisdom something that takes time to learn, and patience.
It does, and that's why our friend Jay Sammett's new book about the advantage of your second act, I don't know if you had he just released it.
I've heard about it. I haven't met him.
Well, yeah.
I haven't heard I've heard about the book, and I'm very interested. What is the name of it again?
And I think Jay would love to come talk to you on your podcast here.
Absolutely.
He's written 3 books. The first one was Disrupt You. I think that was 12 years ago. So he said, if we're living in a constant state of disruption, and if you're not ready to disrupt yourself, you're not going to be around. Then his most recent third book is called Your Second Act Advantage. Because there's a lot of folks my age, right, that's going, what am I going to do now? I don't want to retire yet. I still feel like I have a lot to offer. They're going to replace me with AI, my job. And he does a great job of describing how valuable you are. And back to my Directors Guild story, I think these young guys that were using this new technology needed the seasoned storytellers, right? We need each other, right? Because
Yeah,
you have wisdom and knowledge and experience that the youth doesn't, right?
right.
But they have energy, right? And some hopefully passion, and they want to do something important and grow. And so we kind of need each other now more than ever. And so that's what his book is about. I highly recommend it.
That's good. That's good. I think, it's funny, this year I turned 50 in August, and you do start thinking about those things and like how your life's going to shift and what's happening. All the kids are, I got 2 kids left and 2 kids out already. And, there is that shift in life, and you wonder, am I going to be relevant? And I think, the key there is never giving up on being relevant, in the sense of like, I am always going to work my butt off to try to understand what's going on right now in my industry. I am going to learn the AI, the tools, the platforms, whatever, to be relevant and continue to be able to be somebody that can prompt those tools, automate those tools, use those things to help people in my industry. If I do that and then I add wisdom to it, I've already got an advantage on a kid, you know?
Yep. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting. You cross the threshold. I think Jay uses that. If you're 50 years old or older, you just or 60. And yeah, so that book was written for us,
Absolutely.
and that you got to be a lifelong learner now. Long gone are the days when you'd learn a skill or work for a company for 40 years and then retire. Um, Add to this, Jeremy, that these guys are predicting we're going to live a lot longer lifespan and can be healthier. No, we're not going to be old and decrepit, but they think we're going to easily live to be 100, then 120. And so I've been involved in groups talking about what are we going to do with all that time, in retirement, and how do we keep.
Still working at 100.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that.
No,
Well, they've
man.
got an answer for that too, right? The abundance folks are saying, you're not. Elon Musk predicts you're not going to have a job in the near future unless you want one, right? And then we're trying to figure out how do we compensate people that are going to add value to the people that you know can live an abundant life but not have a job, right? And then we're not all going to create art and play frisbee all day. So right, we're going to have to work that out.
I'm not. I can tell you that much. I would lose my mind not working.
Yeah, no, it's and again, that's what I think gives us purpose is right to
Absolutely.
we need to do that. And so we're lucky, I think, Jeremy, because some of us have jobs that I hate to tell anybody, but we probably do it even if they didn't pay us, right? And people call it a hobby. So I think you're blessed. This is something that Joseph Campbell used to say. You'll never work a day in your life if you love what you do for a living.
Well, I too, like, one thing that I was gonna say too is, I think if you have a creative mind, you mentioned like creative, people are gonna rule the world. Basically, if you have a creative mind, like, there are so many things that somebody that thinks like a creative director really can do, artistically nowadays, by being able to really fine tune things with that artistic eye, because you know what you want, because you've dictated that before to artists, or you've been an artist before. Most creative directors have been artists before, so
Absolutely.
I feel like that has been one of my biggest advantages is having the analog experience or well, digital, but digital design experience to back up the modern AI products that are out.
Yeah, well, I would tell you in his book, Daniel Pink talks about, I forget what technical college it was. It wasn't MIT, but anyways, this college was hiring the best students out of high school that were good at math and science, right? Because they were creating engineers. But they noticed these kids weren't accomplishing as much as they thought they should be. So they changed their admission policy to say, we're going to take the highest scoring kids, but they have to have some kind of artistic endeavor that they do as well, right? Whether it's art or music or dance or something, they have to have that. Now, this college ended up creating the best drum line America, right? Because a lot
Oh,
of their
wow.
students played the drums, right? But when they combine that, we like a lot of our friends are polymaths, right, Jeremy, that we call them. And Einstein played the violin, so Da Vinci is the quintessential polymath, right? So if you're an expert, I think it was Thomas Huxley who said, learn something about everything and everything about something, right? So you can go down the PhD route and learn everything about something, but the more you can learn about everything else gives you a different perspective, And some of our greatest creators and filmmakers and musicians were polymaths. They did something sort of in the science. It's called consilience. There's a book not many people know about that, where it's the merger of the humanities and science, right? And where
Mhm.
those things mix, that's where a lot of the new ideas come from. So,
Well,
yeah,
Benjamin Franklin, people like him, Da Vinci,
yeah,
probably the
perfect.
best examples, Da Vinci.
Yeah, yeah, but you're right, Benjamin Franklin, and he didn't go to college, right? If you know his history, he ended up working in a print shop, and yeah, yeah, I'm gonna have to revisit his biography because you're right. He's a great example of
Well, Harry, man, it's been really great having you on today. Is there anything else that you wanted to let the audience know before we jump off of this call?
well, no, Jim, I'd say thank you. I appreciate you and the work you're doing, and wasn't expecting to have the conversation we did, but I think it's extremely relevant to anybody starting their business, right? That they're going to do online, because I know your understanding of brand, how important that is, how important storytelling is, how important the AI coming, not just with the algorithms that help you get your message to the right group at the right time. Yeah, I just love how you connect the dots, if you will, And so I appreciate the conversation and, like I said, the wisdom that AI doesn't have. So that's why I like listening to you.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I hope we continue to figure out how to be relevant in this day and age. And it's cool to hear from another creative, their thoughts around, where it's going and how you can stay ahead. So
I
thank you
love
so
that. Love that. We have to stay relevant.
absolutely.
That's my mantra from the day.
All right. Well, thank you. See you soon.
All right. Thanks.